Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I am your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really happy to have with me once again Roy Sebag of GoldMoney. Roy is the founder and team leader of BitGold, which recently merged with GoldMoney. He has been an active investor and portfolio manager for over a decade, specializing in distressed, event-driven, and natural resource investments. Throughout his career, he has correctly predicted important investment and economic themes before they materialized, resulting in risk-adjusted returns that significantly outperformed market indexes. And now, Roy is putting his efforts behind BitGold and GoldMoney. Well, thanks for joining me again, Roy. It's always a pleasure to have you with me.
Thanks for having me again, Jay.
You know, for those who are not familiar with BitGold, and you've been on, I think, at least twice on this show, with BitGold and GoldMoney, they were, as I mentioned, just merged together last year. Tell our listeners what services both of those institutions provide.
Sure. So very simply, BitGold is an online payments and savings platform that utilizes gold bullion as its only unit of account. The gold bullion is physical, it's allocated, it's insured, and it's redeemable. So think of BitGold as a gold-backed PayPal system. You can make a deposit into it, you can make a payment with it, you can redeem gold out of it, and if you're a merchant, you will be very shortly be able to send an invoice to someone, which they can then pay, or you'll be able to install a checkout button on your website through which people can make purchases. GoldMoney is a business that we own as well. It's based in Jersey in the Channel Islands. It was a business founded by James Turk close to 15 years ago. GoldMoney is more focused on long-term wealth preservation. It offers you an account where you can wire in funds, one of 6 or 7 different currencies. You can then buy a variety of precious metals, not just gold. You can buy gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. And we've now introduced the GoldMoney prepaid card, which you're allowed to have a card in US dollars, in euros, or in British pounds. And then you can withdraw your gold value from your GoldMoney account to one of those cards and use the card at any point of sale or ATM machine.
All right. Well, you know, Roy, we just talked to Alan Brown, who explained why depositors in the commercial banking system in the United States and in many countries around the world are facing increased risks of bail-ins, risks of zero or negative interest rates. According to her, bail-ins are already starting in Europe, and of course we've had the trial of them in Cyprus a couple of years back. And she says that given recent legal revisions to the bankruptcy laws in the United States, along with Dodd-Frank, American depositors are in some ways even more vulnerable than Europeans to bail-in risks. Well, I believe, BitGold and GoldMoney are completely outside of the banking system. Is that correct? And if so, I should think they would, either of those institutions would provide some wealth protection if you're worried about risks within the banking system.
Yeah, that's correct. The foundational kind of ethos of BitGold was to build a financial service platform or business that was totally outside of the existing financial system. And we did a lot of work on how we could achieve that objective. And the only way you can achieve that while still providing liquidity to your customers is by utilizing gold, because gold has such a such a great infrastructure that's been around for hundreds of years, where there are deep and liquid markets for gold, people willing to buy gold or sell gold in different currencies. There are really, really good and well-articulated standards and procedures like the LBMA standard, where there are chain of custodies, there's chains of integrity, there's auditing standards and procedures, transportation providers and vault custodians that are all approved. So if you want to live outside the banking system, you need a unit of account. And so gold has already that function of being liquid, and then for all the other reasons that make gold a proper and pretty much the best unit of account. But yeah, when you have an account at BitGold or at GoldMoney, you're fully reserved. So the entry that you see is actually backed by a serialized vaulted piece of metal. Mm-hmm. That metal is insured. that metal is allocated to customers, that metal is redeemable. And so if there are bail-ins in the financial system, you basically are totally immune. And with BitGold, you can still affect transactions. So, on day 2 of such an event, you wake up, you log into your phone or to your BitGold account, and you could still send gold to your loved ones, your family, or you could still consume goods or services or accept payment for goods and services utilizing a BitGold. And so that's really an interesting manifestation. And by the way, that didn't exist over the last financial crisis. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what's really interesting is, we're seeing a lot of the same signs. Josh and I, the co-founders of BitGold, we're seeing a lot of the same signs that we've seen, that we saw in 2008, before that financial crisis. And a lot of the financial markets, if you study financial markets, there are a lot of really interesting signs, whether it's the VIX or whether it's the overnight moves in the S&P futures, that are analogous to the action that we saw in 2008 and 2007. And we're actually working on a piece right now where we think that debt and derivatives that are exposed to energy are as high as the subprime debt. Wow. So once that starts permeating through the financial system, you can have sort of a chain effect. I really, really hope that's not going to happen because we all know the debt levels are astronomically high. And we all know that the central banks have reached the quote-unquote Keynesian endpoint. They can no longer do much more. And I sincerely believe that if the Western central banks were to actually go into negative interest rate territory, at this stage that would be viewed as a weakness by the market, not a strength. And though maybe a quarter or two out, they will have succeeded in stimulating and liquidity. Those 2 quarters will initially be met with a flight to safety, and I think just in general, runs on financial institutions. Yeah. So really, the core idea for BitGold, we had when we saw the last round of bail-ins. I saw a run on a bank in California in 2008. Where there was a bank called IndyMac, and I had friends that had accounts at IndyMac, and there was about 4 or 5 days where they couldn't access their deposits. Mm-hmm. They were fine in the end. Sheila Bair, at the time the head of the FDIC, she bailed out IndyMac, but there were 4 or 5 days where their ATM cards didn't work, and they couldn't actually access their deposits at the bank. And this was in the United States, in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm.
Roy, I just have to mention here for those listeners of ours that may not be that familiar with the way the banking system works. The commercial banking system, when you put your money in as a deposit, you are, of course, an unsecured creditor to the bank, to the banking system, but they can take that money that you deposit and lend it out multiple times. Well, if I go and take my money and buy some gold, and it's put in BitGold, that BitGold is my gold, and it cannot be lent out, and it certainly won't be lent out multiple times, right?
That is correct. So a good way to understand this is look at the legal constructs. Legal constructs of a banking depositors require this incredible regulation, whether it's the OCC or whether it's the FDIC, or state regulators. And the reason they need all this regulation, and the reason they need all these standards is because the second they get your money as a deposit, they're allowed to lend it out as much as 8 times. Mm-hmm. And with derivatives and swaps and all these other financial instruments, they can get levered 20 to 1 or 15 to 1 quite easily today still. So in other words, you're making a deposit of $1, and then only maybe 10 cents of that dollar is being held in reserve. So when you show up at the bank and demand your dollar back, that dollar is simply not there. It's been lent out. Now the loan itself may have value. It may even have more intrinsic value than at the time you lent the money or that you made the deposit. But the problem is that there's something called reflexivity in markets. So when everyone wants the dollar back, it actually reduces the value of the loans. So the system itself is flawed, and we've seen it only survive because of the fiat money standard. A system like this would be impossible under a gold standard. Conversely, with BitGold, the legal construct is bailment, and the bailment construct is basically saying, look, we're acting on your behalf and on your instruction, but we have zero rights to your gold. And this is what's codified with Brinks as well, the vault custodian. So the vault custodian knows that we're only allowed to act on your behalf, okay? And so we're not allowed to commingle the gold. We're not allowed to do anything with the gold other than liquidate it or take the funds from your deposit processor, if it's a Visa or a MasterCard or a wire, to buy gold. And all that activity is fully segregated. So totally two different legal constructs between banking and something like BitGold. And the truth is that something like BitGold wouldn't have been possible without the advancements we made in technology. Like, we had to make it settlable. And anyone that's used BitGold by now understands this concept of pending and settled. They can see that sometimes when they make a deposit, it could take 2 days till they get their gold. That is how the real world works. You have to actually get confirmation from the vault custodian that the counterparty you purchased the metal from, on the other side, has actually delivered the metal. But once that metal is delivered and it's settled, and you have a settled balance on the BitGold platform, the beauty is you can then use it to do whatever you want. Send it to anyone, and it's basically as good as gold.
Well, I see a real basic difference here. Ellen Brown, our guest before you, was talking about how, again, people put their money in a bank and they think it's their money, but legally they are really unsecured creditors to that bank. If I have my grams of gold at BitGold, it's my gold, right? It's my asset. I'm not a lender to BitGold.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We aren't even allowed to be borrowing from anyone. I mean, we're regulated as a money service business, and the key differentiating factor between an MSB or a money service business and a bank is the money service business is not allowed to fractionally reserve their unit of account. So we're only allowed to deal with fully reserved units of account, and to essentially allow two parties to transmit that value between each other. So we just chose to do it with gold. But that is exactly correct. It's always your gold. It's redeemable. It's insured. It's segregated, and it's physical. A lot of people have written into us saying like, "Are you sure it's physical? You sure you're not?" Like, no, it's physical. I mean, if you want to redeem your physical kilogram, go ahead and do it. If you want to redeem 10 grams of gold, we encourage people to do that as well. In fact, that's how we make money.
Exactly. All right. Well, with just a couple of minutes left, Roy, tell our listeners, what are the fees for your services?
So the fee is a 1% off the bid or offer to make a deposit or redemption. So if you deposit $100, you are going to be charged 1% off the offer at the time. Okay, and the offer is generally the spot price. And if you look on our website, we have a live price. That's simply the midpoint price between the bid and the offer.
Okay.
And it's a real-time price. Okay, so some people have been confused with that as well. We wanted to make gold simple. So we didn't even like the concept of a bid or an offer, right? Because it confuses most people. They don't understand what that means. You pay that 1% over the bid or over the offer. You then have gold in your account. We do not charge you a storage or custody fee. We pay a storage and custody fee that includes insurance for you, okay? But we eat that cost. And then basically you can use the gold for free. So you can make payments within the platform for free. But if you choose to, say, load your debit card, we give you a free debit card if you have over 1 gram of gold. If you choose to use the debit card, it's considered a redemption because you're liquefying the gold from gold grams into whatever currency is on your debit card. So, of course, you're charged that 1% again off the bid. But so long as you use gold within the platform, I send you some gold, Jay, you send some gold to your son or daughter, that's totally free.
Oh, it's all right. You mentioned that there's a lot of interest right now, and it's not surprising to me given the sort of turmoil in the equity markets and the debt markets and so forth that people are probably starting to think more seriously. How are your numbers coming along, Roy? How's the membership? How's the number of people that are using your service? Is that growing quite rapidly now?
Yeah, so I have to be careful since we're a publicly traded company, and our key performance indicators are published every 30 days.
Okay.
I don't want to be providing any material non-public information. What I have said on Twitter, and securities regulators consider Twitter to be an adequate form of distribution, by the way. Mm-hmm. So what I've said is that we're having the best month we've ever had. And I think that people will recognize that when they see the KPIs.
Well, I was just watching, in fact, I think an executive at PayPal the other day. I think he was at Davos, and he was being interviewed on television, and he was talking about PayPal. He said their biggest competition, or their greatest competition, is not MasterCard or Visa, but really is something like, people who are just using cash. He said that 85% of transactions around the world are still conducted in cash, which was somewhat surprising to me. But who do you see as your main target audience? Who are you looking to do business with?
Well, coincidentally, it's the same exact customers that are using PayPal, except that there's a cross-section of customers that are also using something like a TD Ameritrade or a Schwab for their wealth management. And again, take that brand and extrapolate it globally. I watched that same panel with Dan Schulman at Davos yesterday. I thought it was a really good panel, actually. And I urge viewers to listen to it. But it is phenomenal to me how arrogant these guys are, and how they want to eliminate cash from the system so that they can control all the money. I think that it's not going to work for them. I think there will always be something like cash. I think it's one of those like foundational rights. It's almost like a civil right.
I would definitely agree with you on that, Roy. I'm so glad you could be with us again. Want to talk to you some more often, you or somebody from your shop, because I think it's a really exciting story that you have. I think I'm very interested in the stock as well, and I talk to my listeners about that from time to time as well as my subscribers. So I guess the best place is BitGold.com people should go to, right, to follow up?
That is correct, BitGold.com. And if you open an account today and if you have your credit card handy, you're eligible for a first deposit bonus if you make a deposit within 15 minutes. I also think it would be great for you to have Daryl McMullen online next time. He is our new CEO, and he actually was the CEO of PayPal Canada.
Excellent. We'll try to do that sometime in the near future. I want to thank you very much, Roy, and all the best to you, and we'll look to do it again sometime soon.
Thank you very much, Jay.